to work for an organization called Restore International this summer in San Diego, California. And my journey with Restore started last January when I read the book Love Does by Bob Goff. And the subtitle is Discover a Secretly Incredible Life in an Ordinary World. And basically what Bob talks about is how love is an action, and if we live our lives in love every day, the world would look really different. And so I kind of fell in love with his ideology and philosophy of life. And so when it came time for me to think about what I wanted to do the next summer for my Bonner internship, I actually called him because he leaves his number in the back of the book and wants to be really accessible. And so one of the chapters in the book is called You Don't Have to Be Invited. And it's basically like you don't have to be invited to do what you want to do if you want to do something good and love people extravagantly, just go and do it. Don't wait for an invitation and don't wait for people to tell you that you can do it. So I called him and I was like, Bob, you said I don't have to wait for an invitation, so I'm coming to work for you this summer. And he was like, okay. So I flew to San Diego. And my first day at the office, I walked in and was immediately greeted with a big bear hug from Bob Goff, our founder. And I immediately realized that Restore was not your typical organization. We have, I don't know if you can see behind, but we have a ball pit in the office, about 6 surfboards, a closet full of like unicorn horns and balloons and all sorts of stuff. So there is no normal day at the office at Restore, which is really fun. And the culture is just very different from any other organization I've ever encountered. Bob insists that we're not an organization, we're a network of friends. And so he really believes in being secretly incredible. And so he doesn't, I did a lot of marketing stuff for Restore, but he doesn't believe in telling people what we do because he wants to be humble about it. And so how do you market an organization that doesn't want to tell people what they do? But that was a challenge. But he's a very charismatic and eclectic guy and founded Restore International in 2005 when he went to India and witnessed extreme human rights violations there. And Restore's mission statement is to change a few lives for the better, and they fight for freedom and human rights and work to improve educational opportunities for children and try to be helpful to those in need of a voice and a friend. And so this was me and my fellow interns. One thing that was really fun about Restore is we love celebrating every little accomplishment. So when we just had like huge stacks of paperwork and stuff like that, we'd like hide chocolate bars under them and stuff for each other. So it was really fun. And they dubbed me the coordinator of happiness. And so through my experience at Restore, I began to learn the importance of story and marketing and how crucial humility, relationship, and respect are when you're attempting to create long-term change in communities. So my first week at work, I was invited to a meeting in which we talked about how to invite our donors into living a better story. Donald Miller, my boss, had just gotten back from Donald Miller's Story Brand Conference, in which he talks about, well, a quote from him is, if what we choose to do with our lives won't make a story meaningful, it won't make a life meaningful either. And so basically, we started strategizing on how to, with every piece of communication that we put out and through our website, how to paint donors as the heroes in these stories. And so through Dr. Johnson gave me lots of awesome articles on storytelling. That's something he's really passionate about. And Walter Fisher talks about, in his article, Narration of it, or I forget what the article's called, sorry. But he talks about how humans are storytelling beings, and we choose what stories, the best stories that are available to us, and we want to feel brave and adventurous. But in order for people to buy into these stories must have fidelity. And I realized that Restore was a character in the story that we were telling, and so we needed to have consistency to merit trust and belief from our donors. And so through this, I realized the importance of constant voice and tone over social media and everything that we put out. And so I kind of headed up the social media department and like marketing while I was there. So I started designing graphics for Restore. And I wanted our voice and tone to be very joyful and adventurous and exciting because we wanted to paint this picture of what a donor's life could look like if they chose to get involved with our organization. Another book I read while I was working for Restore was The Art of Explanation by Lee Lefevre. And through reading his book, I started thinking about if people were to understand Restore like we do, how much more they would want to get invested in our organization. So if people understood Restore as well as the people working for it, I thought that they would want to get super involved and donate and help us accomplish what we want to do. But there's a communication gap there, and the cost of understanding is sometimes too high. People don't want to really dive in and figure out what these issues mean because they think that we just weren't communicating very well. So Lee Lefevre talks about answering questions of what is this with why people should care about them. And explanations require empathy, and stories make people care because they help people view things through the lens of human emotion and conflict and stuff like that. So instead of one of our programs is providing funding for court cases in northern Uganda. But instead of explaining all of the injustices of the court system, we can talk about Godfrey. And so Godfrey's story is that he was falsely accused and imprisoned, but throughout this, he's remained this super positive attitude, looks up to Nelson Mandela and wants to maintain a heart for the people while incarcerated. And as soon as he's released, he already has this plan to start giving back to the community. He's not bitter about it or anything like that. So we're not just helping faceless people get out of jail. We're helping Godfrey achieve his dreams. So that's kind of how we wanted to paint things. And along those same lines, we have a program called Launch, which funds kids' college education. So we're not just helping send faceless kids to college. We're helping Gloria achieve her dreams of educating the people of Uganda on gender and reducing the rate of gender-based violence in Uganda. This is a video I created, I don't think it's, yeah. And basically it just tells the story of Launch, but yeah. Another thing that I became really passionate about while I was working for Restore is the importance of humility, relationship, and respect in outsiders' attempts to restore impoverished communities abroad. And so through this, I read a book called When Helping Hurts, and they talked about how we define poverty really matters. And in North America, we tend to define poverty materially. And so because of that definition, we treat it materially, and we end up doing a lot of relief when development is needed. So we like concrete results. So we will go and build a house. And the short-term missions industry is booming in America. I think I saw a statistic that 90% of people in churches say that their church participates in short-term missions, and out of those people, 75% have been on one. But I kind of dove into the scholarly articles and analysis of what these short-term mission trips were actually accomplishing, and a lot of times they were harming the communities that they were intending to help because these generally upper middle to upper class white North Americans would come into these communities with every intention to help, totally good intentions, and they would build a house, or they would distribute food or clothing or something like that, and they wanted very concrete results. They wanted to be able to come home and say, I built a house, we fed 3,000 people, stuff like that. But through this, they were entering with superiority complexes and further affirming the material poor's inferiority complexes by just taking what they think are solutions and wanting to execute them quickly in order to get results. And by this, we're so driven for efficiency and numbers that it would drive people away because they basically it's this idea of paternalism, doing things for people that they could be doing themselves. So you would bring in clothing or building materials and you would undermine the local economy by bringing those things in free, when really a restoration of poverty is about walking with people in relationship and coming in humbly and helping each other. Everyone is impoverished in some way. Like we're just as impoverished as they are, and they have more to teach us than we have to teach them. So this is the Relief for Rehabilitation and Development, and most of America treats poverty with relief when really we should be focused on rehabilitation and development, because relief is really just a band-aid, and it's needed in natural disaster situations, but in most long-term development situations, rehabilitation and development is needed. So due to learning all this, I decided to create a pre-vision trip learning program, restorative short-term missions, but we refuse to call them that because we want it to be the start of a relationship with people in a foreign country, and we believe that it's not really a missions trip. We don't believe that they don't really come in and like do things. They just learn and meet people and really delve into the culture of the country in order to start a relationship. So I designed a vision trip learning program that teaches people how to enter in humility and just about a lot of the statistics and really learn about the culture of the country before they get there. I was also the grant writing intern, so I did a lot of grant writing for Restore, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Suddenly, but they are a social enterprise that features a different nonprofit every week, and they design different clothes, and they donate $7 per shirt or like article of clothing bought to the organization, and I was able to apply to Suddenly to partner with us, and they just featured us a couple weeks ago, which was really exciting. And then we also designed a campaign for Kind Causes, which is a $10,000 grant that's given every month. And then I applied for probably like 7 other grants as well that we haven't heard back about. But basically, it was an incredible experience. I learned a lot about myself. I was living alone in San Diego, so that was a big growing experience for me. But this is a quote from our founder, Bob Goff, that has really impacted me. And it says, "Being engaged is a way of doing life, a way of living and loving. It's about going to extremes and expressing the bright hope that life offers us. A hope that makes us brave and spells darkness with light. That's what I want my life to be about, full of abandon, fluency, and in love." Thank you.